let's talk about the 5 problems within a project. Now, number 1 for me is resourcing problems. So you as the project manager, you could be ready to go, but unfortunately there aren't the resources to actually deliver the elements within the project. So previously we've talked about the plan, we've talked about making sure that you have names against each item, each milestone on the plan. Now, if there are no resources to do certain stuff on your plan, then unfortunately that does hinder your project. And the only thing that you can do about that is, like I said, in the dependencies, is move on to the next thing. So if your project is not something, if it's an item that's not dependent on something else, then you can just move on to the next step in your project plan if there is a resourcing issue for a particular item. Risks and issues. Now, I've already talked about risks and issues and how to deal with them, how to monitor them, but they are major problems within a project. If you've got a major risk that is red, that is hindering the progress of the project, that is stopping you from delivering certain elements of the project, that is a problem. The same with issues. Issues can actually stop a project completely. So those two are quite big problems within a project that you are going to come up against, but as long as you've got the tools and you've got a good team around you, you should be able to overcome it. There may also be some financial constraints. You know, you might be working for an organization who doesn't have a lot of money, but they want to do a lot of things, and so you have to try and find back doors to do certain things. Instead of buying a new software, you might have to create one internally. Instead of getting in resources to do something, you may have to use internal resources, where that puts more pressure on them to do their day job plus the project as well. So those are things that you'll have to manage as a project manager. Number 4, delivery delays. Again, all the things I've mentioned already can cause a delay. You yourself could become sick and not be able to work. Again, that would cause a delay. There's no one to push the project forward. It could be that you've got a financial pressure, as I said before, can cause a delay if you can't get resources in, if you don't have internal resources that can do stuff. If you've got risks and issues that you need to figure out first before you can move on to the next points on your plan in the project, then that again can cause delays as well. You can have vendor issues. A vendor can cause a delay if they're not getting back to you on time, if they're not doing their parts on time, then that can also cause delays. These are things that you will come up against as a project manager. And lastly, number 5, team communication. If your communication with your team is poor, that will cause a problem within your project. You will not get anything done if you can't communicate with people. Understand that there are going to be certain people who are hard to communicate with. They are trouble, I want to say, or they're just hard people. You know, you always get hard people. You ask them to do something and they complain about it. They're going to do it anyway, but they spend 20 minutes complaining to you about how much work they've got to do or whatever. You're always going to have people like that on your project, but you have to still be able to communicate with them. You have to still take the time to make sure you're having project meetings, to make sure you're talking to people outside of the project, making sure you're keeping people informed as well of what is happening. So if you are coming up against any kind of issues, that you're speaking to the right people and you are moving the project along the best way that you can. I think there can be a lot of pressure on a project manager to deliver, but if you are showing that you're doing everything that you possibly can to get stuff done, then nobody can hold it against you if it's delayed or if there are issues, because they can see that, one, you've been trying to communicate, you're going to your higher up managers and you're letting them know where you're having issues, and you've highlighted things early. Very important that you highlight things early in a project so that later on you can point back and say, well, I highlighted this in the report and now this has happened, or I highlighted this to you in this conversation and this has happened. Making sure you're taking project notes, making sure that you're making having your project actions noted as well, so you can dated, so you can go back and say, well, I told you to do this, or we spoke about this here and there, and that covers your back. But yeah, you are going to come up against a lot of problems as a project manager. It is the nature of the game. You're dealing with people, you're dealing with a change. Sometimes just the change alone is a problem. So in my next video, I'll talk about good things and not just bad things. But I hope you've enjoyed this, and let me know what you think in the comments.